Well, good morning, everybody. This is Mayor Matt Starr coming back to you with our next podcast. And this is part of the Chats with Mayor Matt series. And today I have a special guest. I've got Joe Springer in the office with me today. And we're going to talk about what's going on with the people who are homeless in our community, particularly not only what usually happens, but also what's happening because of the COVID-19 virus and the challenges that those meet. I have been receiving some calls periodically about this particular topic, and I thought, well, why not bring in the experts? So anyway, Joe, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So tell us, for the listeners, the citizens who don't know where the Winter Sanctuary is, where are you located, and how long have you been in business?
Yeah, so we're located on 401 West Vine Street, so right in town. And the shelter started in 2008, and it is basically just a group of people who saw a need in the community that came together, and St. Paul's Episcopal Church, they opened up their doors, and they just on a daily basis, they tried to find people to come in and volunteer to supervise the place, and we've grown from there to the facility we have on 401 West Vine Street, where we can have 30 homeless individuals in there at a time. And
how does that break down, men and women? And
so we could have up to 18 men and 12 women at a time.
Okay, good. That's got to present challenges for you, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really wonderful working with our guests, and for the most part, they're also appreciative to have a roof over their head. Mm-hmm. It's not bad at all.
Well, good. And you get a lot of volunteers that make this happen too. I mean, there's a ton of volunteers.
Yes.
Talk about some of what they do.
So we have 70 plus volunteers at the shelter, and we really wouldn't be able to do what we do without our volunteers. They come in, they supervise our guests, they build relationships with our guests, and they're really. We just wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. So
well, and let's talk a little bit about the relationship. That's really the key to the mission. If you want to talk a little bit about the mission, and then how crucial those relationships are that we establish with the guests and with each other. If you don't mind, we can get into that.
So our mission is to provide seasonal emergency shelter for the homeless in our community, and to connect them to resources to help them move forward in life. The relationship part of what we do it's a huge thing, because all of our guests that come into the shelter, they have different problems, different issues in their life that led them to become homeless. But one thing that nearly every guest has in common is they burnt pretty much every bridge in their life. They don't have any family members to go stay with. They don't have friends that'll take them in. So all of the guests have either burned all these bridges in their life, or their friends and family have so many issues of their own they're not able to help them. So that's a huge part of what we're doing, is just rebuilding those relationships, positive relationships in their life. Sure. With our volunteers and with our staff, our advocates at the shelter. So.
And let's talk a little bit about that advocacy part, because that's there's no secret. We've worked together, and we've done some stories. Yeah. My previous company, or my other company that I work on, we did a story about what you guys do. Mm-hmm. And that advocacy portion of what it is really, I think, what sets you. It's not just coming in and having a place to hang your hat. You got to work at some stuff. Can you talk about what that advocacy part entails, and what that has done for the success rate for you guys?
So it's not just a roof over your head. And really, the thing that I really love about the shelter we have here in Mount Vernon is that I feel like we provide a way out for our guests out of their situation, just by connecting them to resources in the community. So when they come in, we do an intake, and we go over our policies and our rules and for the shelter to make sure it's a safe place to be. But also at our intake, we give them a goal sheet. Mm-hmm. And we say, think about it over the next 3 days. Think about some things you'd like to work on. Nearly all of them have goals of getting into housing. Mm-hmm. But also we have them put together some more goals, because usually there's some problems or issues in their life that led them to become homeless in the first place. So we want to address those too, whether it's mental health, substance misuse issues, maybe they just can't get a job. Maybe their past, they have so many problems in their past that they can't find anybody that'll rent to them. So it's addressing all those underlying issues that led them to become homeless, as well as helping them find an apartment and a way to get in there.
Well, it's kind of like when you talk about some of those things that got them to the place, they're all interrelated, it seems like, in many cases. From when I was in there doing the story on you guys a couple years ago, they were all the mental health issues, the addiction issues, the family dysfunction issues, and and the job issues or lack thereof, all just kind of fed into the same downward spiral that kind of got them there. And as you said, they burned their bridges, or they didn't know where else to turn at that particular point in time. But it's got to be motivating for somebody to sit across from you when you're on your last nerve and say, let's establish some goals.
Yeah.
And let's just not be satisfied with just finding a roof over your head. Let's talk about life. How do you want to, how do you see yourself, or what could you be?
Yeah.
So what are the kind of cool goals, without mentioning any names, or what are the kind of interesting goals that have you heard from people who seem to be cast aside and we have low expectations of? Tell us about some of the goals that you've seen people meet.
Some of the more common ones are like sobriety, or getting the mental health in order. A lot of trauma in their lives, things that they need to take care of. But also, for a lot of them, one of their goals is to reunite with their family. They either have, a lot of them have kids that they haven't been able to see. They have family members that, because of their personal problems, they've been kind of shut out of their family members' lives. And so those relationships, trying to rebuild those with their family, that's always a huge goal of theirs as well. So it's, again, addressing those underlying issues that not only led them to become homeless, but to break all these relationships from their past, So.
And so some of those, learning some of that comes from interacting with your volunteers, but you also work with other partners in the community too, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk about that in terms of how people rebuild their lives through your program? Oh,
yeah. So I'll just give you some examples of what we would do. If somebody came in and they had mental health issues, we would connect them to places like the Main Place, or BHP, or the health department to meet with a counselor out at the health department. If they have substance misuse issues, we connect them to places like Riverside Recovery, the Freedom Center, and also disability. We have a lawyer, Amy Moore, who helps our guests with disability. So we work, we don't do a whole lot of programming at the shelter, but we refer them to all these wonderful resources that we have in the community that can really change their life.
Now, what about physical health? I imagine has to come into play somewhere in this as well, because that's sometimes underlying some of these other issues. So you work with, I suppose it's the health department, or the federally qualified health clinic, and maybe some other resources in town.
Yeah. And also connecting our guests to, job and family, to make sure they got insurance, make sure they're being fed. The health is a major issue. A lot of the people who come in really are disabled from mental health or physically, and they don't even know where to start as far as getting help with that. So connecting them to Amy Moore, the disability lawyer, or getting them out to the health department to get the care they need, that is a large part of what we do.
That's great. I know the work you guys have done, obviously, because I've done my own video story on you guys as well for the United Way that sponsored that, and I know they help support the advocacy program as well, and that's wonderful that they continue to do that. Now, let's talk about some of the state of affairs with the COVID-19 threat and how you guys have been able to adapt and what you've had to do as a result of all the stay-at-home orders, the close quarters that you have at the Winter Sanctuary, and what should our citizens know about how you've been able to handle that?
Yeah, so when all of this came up, we became concerned because the way our facility's set up is, particularly the men's side, we have bunk beds. The beds are barely 3 feet apart, and 18 men in one room. And so the concern was if someone were to get this virus, it would go through the whole shelter.
Sure.
Like crazy. So we met with Julie Miller and talked to her about the situation. And we were also very concerned about our volunteers.
Well, Julie's a volunteer with you guys too.
Yeah. She's a volunteer. Yeah, she's very involved with what we do at the shelter. So it was nice to have that resource.
Sure.
But so what we decided to do is, first of all, we said if you're over 60, if you have any health issues, we don't want you to volunteer. So our younger volunteers had to step up to get us through the season. And we also made the difficult decision to close on April 1st. Very difficult decision. We were supposed to go through the end of April.
Okay.
We started doing that last season.
That's right, yeah.
We extended our season, but we decided to close on April 1st just for the safety of our guests and our volunteers. But along with that, we decided we want to make sure that not one of our guests has to go live on the street.
Right. Were you at capacity then? Were you at 30 also at that time?
At that time, I think we had 23 guests. 23 guests,
okay.
So we went to work. We really went to work, and we were able to get 10 guests in that month of March into housing, into their own apartment. One went to a sober living home. 10 guests moved in with friends or family. And then we were left with 6 guests who had nowhere to go. So what we did is we reached out to the Knox County Foundation, and they gave us some emergency funding to be able to house those 6 guests while we still advocate for them, connecting them to resources, work on getting them into apartments, or finding a safe place for them to go. So it's been pretty wild. I'm proud of the work we've done. It's not really what I expected or what I wanted to do, but really it's been I think it's been really good for our guests. So.
Well, good. I know you guys are constantly working, and with any volunteer organization that is doing such extremely important work, particularly when you're working with people who have burned all the bridges and they don't know where else to turn. The challenges that takes on, and just it's not like we just keep going. It's not just a roof over their head. It is learning how to rebuild their lives and establish those new relationships that will assure their success. So, and there have been quite a few success stories that have come out of your shop over there, if you will, your house. And that's, we love stories of redemption, and we love stories of the underdog being able to finally make it, and that's just inspirational for everybody. I see some of the people that I met when we were working together on that project. Yeah. And one of them in particular is volunteering now on her own volition at the main place. She's helping to establish those functional relationships with other people who were in her spot, and it's just so cool to see that. she's now giving back.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
It's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, it really is.
And that happens. I know that happens. That's got to happen a lot for you guys too.
Yeah. Yeah, for most of our guests, they're just so thankful for what the shelter does, but also what the community has done for them. That when they when they get through it, that rough time in their life, they are very motivated and want to give back.
Yeah, and it's like when you are in a situation, let's say of homelessness. Somebody can talk to me. I've never been in a situation where I'm homeless, so nothing that I say is going to be anything. But if I can talk to somebody who has been through that and has found a way, that means a lot to me.
Yeah,
because they know where to go, they know how to get it done, and so I'm going to listen to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I think, a strength of this network that you guys have been a critical part of. I know that. Lori Jones and New Directions, they do similar things. I know that, and I think the United Way supports that program as well. And there are other, Freedom Center, BHP, Riverside Recovery. A lot of these places. Again, it's establishing that network of people who have been through the down and outs, if you will, and have come through on the other side. Yeah. So I like to call it the hero's journey. They've gone through that call to adventure and have faced the abyss and have come back to their world heroes.
Yeah.
So, and these are the kind. You know what? These are the kinds of victories that our community needs.
Yeah.
We just need these things because we hate seeing failures. We love seeing people turning their lives around.
Yeah.
And leaving that person that was behind, that was down and out or facing addiction or homelessness. We love to see that person turn their lives around. That's got to feel good when you see that.
It feels wonderful. And it does happen. It happens a lot. And there's also a lot of heartbreak along with working at the shelter with some of our guests. But that's why we do what we do. To see those stories, those people who have gotten things together and their lives have been transformed and changed, and that's what motivates us. And I feel like it's impacted our community. What we're doing, that's changed lives. So.
So what else is the Winter Sanctuary wanting to do from this point forward? Once we get through this, on the other side of this virus, what are your guys' plans?
Well, we have some long-term goals. One of them is we would like to better serve homeless families. The way that the shelter is set up, it's everybody's in one room, so we can't have children in the shelter. Luckily, through Job and Family Services, we have a grant to be able to put homeless families in a hotel for a short period while I advocate them and connect them to other resources. But we'd like to be able to have families in our shelter. And we would like to be able to have more separated rooms, and we had families was the main reason we wanted to have separate rooms, but now we have a new reason why we want to have separate rooms, because right now, if we were able to separate our guests in rooms, we probably wouldn't have had to shut down on April 1st.
Yeah.
So one of our goals is a facility where we can have our guests divided up more in rooms. So a new facility or remodeling the facility, I'm not sure where we're going with that, but that is one of our major goals. And another goal that we have is extending our season, hopefully eventually being year-round.
Yeah.
Right now we rely so much on our volunteers who give so much to the shelter. So it's either going to take a lot more volunteers or it's going to take bringing in some staff.
Sure.
And we've already started to add some staff on our overnights at the shelter, but we're still largely volunteer driven. So extending our season. Now, just because our shelter closes doesn't mean our advocacy stops.
Right.
That goes year round.
Okay.
The homeless are able to meet with me or my work partner Anne Marie Wiley, and we still connect them to resources in the community. But the shelter closes. We'd like to extend that shelter season.
Yep. And you had a pretty successful fundraiser this past year, too.
Yes.
That was, you guys made a chunk of change. That was good to see, too, because that just puts you guys on a level of status, I think, that is deserving.
Yeah.
When you start bringing in that amount of money to be able to pay for the programs, you can do bake sales, a lot of them, but you need need these bigger events to draw attention to the issue. And what a better topic you'd have had with a Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
that was just perfect.
It was fantastic. I felt like the play was great. The community support was great. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people just went to go see a great show, but I think a lot of them were even more motivated to go because they knew that the money from that was going directly towards helping the homeless.
Yeah, it goes right to client services too, and that's an important part of this whole program. So anyway, well, listen, Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of enlighten the citizens of Mount Vernon on what's going on with persons who are homeless, and there's a story behind every one.
Yes,
it's not just somebody lying on the street. It's not just somebody walking around. There is a story. There's heartache. There's a cry for help. And thank you for doing all of your work that you guys do, the volunteers, the board of directors, and anybody who supports that. Thank you very much for all you do.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, that will conclude our podcast for today. We'll have another one coming up very soon. I will be talking with Sergeant Troy Glazier from the Mount Vernon Police Department. We're going to be talking about some of the data collection that he's been taking care of with these new speed limit signs, these solar-powered speed limit signs. So anyway, until then, we'll have more chats with Mayor Matt next time. Everybody stay safe, stay strong, and stay smart.